Hi everyone, this is the sixth and final video in the series of how to complete the IRB application at UIS. So today we're going to cover sections 9 through 12. So starting with section 9, this is covering dissemination of results. So 9A asks list proposed forms of dissemination. So for example, journal articles, if you're a grad student, finishing your master's thesis, academic paper, conference presentation, sharing with industry, etc. I put C above, which is perfectly acceptable since it does ask this at the beginning of the application. 9B says, will you publish, share, or otherwise disseminate any identifiers? Our study is going to be confidential and we don't want the participants tied to our study, so I've put no. But if you're going to, you'd want to indicate yes. And then it says, if yes, does the consent form explicitly ask consent for such dissemination or otherwise inform participants that it is required in order to participate in the study? So if you do mark yes up here, then you'll want to indicate whether you've included that information or not. But ideally, you would want to include that information, and therefore you should probably mark yes. For 9C, it says, do you intend to put de-identified data in a data repository? No, because we plan on deleting it, so I should actually probably mark no. But if yes, then you would obviously want to mark yes and then explain why and how that data will be de-identified. All right, that concludes section 9. So section 10 asks for the expected completion date. We actually mentioned this above, so I'm going to go ahead and put C above, which is also perfectly acceptable. And then for 10B, it says, did you include required information in the informed consent about UIS policy to maintain confidential records for 3 years after completion of the study? I'll go ahead and mark yes. You'll want to mark yes, and actually, if you go to our website, you can find an informed consent template that has all this necessary information. So you can literally use that in your study. All right, so that concludes section 10. So we're moving on to section 11, which is minimizing risk. So 11A says, what factors may interfere or influence the collection of voluntary information, of voluntary informed consent? There's several options. The first one is no known factors, which is what we've marked, because there really are no factors that can interfere or influence the collection of voluntary informed consent. The second option is research will involve students enrolled in a course or program taught by a member of the research team. So if you were doing a study, maybe a survey, for example, or an interview on students in a course or program, and you're the instructor, then you'd want to mark this. The third option says research will involve employees whose supervisor or supervisors is/are recruiting participants. Since we're not the employer in this study, we don't have to mark this. But if we were an employer who's conducting a study that includes their employees, then we'd want to mark this. The fourth option says participants have a close relationship to the research team. Our participants have no relation to us, or at least, in this hypothetical study, I don't have any participants who have a close relationship with me. But if you did, you'd obviously want to mark that. And then if there's any other relationship that exists between the research team and participants, you'd want to indicate that. And then, if applicable, you'll want to describe the procedures to mitigate the above factors. All right, so 11B says indicate the language used by those obtaining consent. We're having people use English, so we've indicated that here. Underneath it says indicate the language understood by the prospective subject or the legally authorized representative. We don't need to fill that out because they're going to conduct the interview in English, so we should be fine on this front. 11C says foreign location. Will research collect data from residents or citizens of the European Union or China? No, since we're conducting interviews here in Springfield, Illinois, that's where we'll be drawing our data from, so we don't have to worry about that. But if we were, we'd want to name the country, so some country in the European Union or China. 11D If the research involves pregnant women, fetuses, or neonates, indicate whether consent will be obtained from the pregnant women, mother, father, or all. Our study doesn't focus on pregnant women or fetuses or neonates, so I've put not available, not applicable. 11E says, if the research involves children, indicate whether consent will be obtained from both parents and legal guardians, unless one parent is deceased, unknown, incompetent, or not reasonably available, or when only one parent has legal responsibility for the care and custody of the child, or from one parent regardless of the status of the other parent. Our study doesn't involve children, so we've put not available, not applicable. And that concludes section 11. So we are on our final section here, which is determining, exempt determination. So 12A says, it asks, does the study pose more than minimal risk to the participants? Again, we've indicated no, and that's also indicated through us completing that waiver of informed consent form. 12B asks, does this study involve deception? No, but obviously if it did, you want to put yes. 12C, does the study involve vulnerable populations, so minors or others checked in section B? We can mark no, because we're not working with a vulnerable population. And then it says, if no to all three, 12A through 12C, review the 8 categories of exemption listed below and check any category or categories that apply to your research. So fair warning here, you're more than welcome to pick the category that seems to most align with the level of risk in your study. A lot of times we tend to agree with what PIs put, but sometimes we may not agree, and then we'll either change it if it's exempt, or if we feel it's expedited or full board, then we'll send that to the IRB board for review. So for ours, there's several options here. I think it's 8 options. I won't read through all of these, but what I will say is I think ours potentially falls into exempt category 2, which has research involving the use of educational tests, survey procedures, interview procedures, or observation of public behavior, including visual or auditory recording, if at least one of the following criteria is met. Information obtained is recorded in such a manner that human subjects cannot readily be identified, directly or through identifiers linked to the subjects, or B, any disclosure of the human subject's response outside the research would not reasonably place the subjects at risk of criminal or civil liability or be damaging to the subject's financial standing, employability, or reputation, or C, the information obtained is recorded by the investigator in such a manner that the identity of the human subjects can readily be ascertained directly or through identifiers linked to the subjects, and IRB conducts a limited IRB review. So I would probably mark exempt 2 here, and really the IRB might determine that it is exempt 2, but I know in the past when PIs have recorded their information, we've automatically done an expedited review. So it may actually be the case that my study here qualifies for an expedited review, but category 2 seems to align the best out of all of them, so that's what I've marked. But of course, you'll want to read through all 8 of these and make sure that the level of risk with your study lines up with what you're selecting in the exempt determination. All right, so then that concludes this video. I hope you all found this series helpful, but if you have any questions, again, you can contact our email. It's ora@uis.edu. It's all lowercase. All right, thank you all. Take care.